Welcome to But Are There Dragons, a podcast where two friends pick a book at least one of them has not read and work their way through it a few chapters at a time.
I'm your host, Kritter.
And I'm your host, Jess.
And we're continuing this adventure with The Two Towers by J.R.R. Tolkien, with me as the resident Lord of the Rings veteran.
And me as a Lord of the Rings first-timer.
In this, our 7th episode of Season 3, we're going to discuss Book 4, Chapters 6 through 8. We are getting so close to the end. Before we dive in, though, Jessica, what's new with you?
Just getting ready for summer and all that entails. There's lots of big plans this month. So just making sure all my I's are dotted and T's are crossed for those events. How about you?
I mean, same. I have got a big month ahead of me. June. It's like December is one of the biggest months for me because it's like, birthday, my brother's birthday, Christmas, obviously. It's a fun big month. June is the same way. Mr. Critter's birthday is this month. My wedding anniversary is this month. Usually we're traveling, and the same is going to be true this month. Father's Day, and it's June is a great month. I love it. Back in the day when I was in school, it was the first full month of summer. My mom's a teacher, so she's living it up right now. Jealous of that. But June's a great month. One of my favorites, I'd say.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
For sure. Okay. Are you ready to dive into these chapters?
Ready.
It's a little bit of a shorter, as far as like page numbers go. So we'll see how long this episode is compared to our other ones. I know last episode we went on like a 7-minute rant about cicadas. I don't plan to do that today, so we'll see.
I mean, but you can never rule it out with us.
Yeah, anything could happen, but we're going to get started on the books, at least for now, with Book 4, Chapter 6, The Forbidden Pool. So Faramir wakes Frodo in the wee hours and leads him to an overlook above a picturesque pool. Sam, of course, wakes up, sensing Frodo's departure, and follows them. Turns out Gollum is fishing in the pool of Henneth Anun, an act worthy of a death sentence, and it's up to Frodo to hold Faramir's men back from shooting him down on the spot. Any thoughts about this sequence?
What I really love about this sequence, and unfortunately it means my bias is showing, is Frodo once again comes to Gollum's rescue to at least a little degree. He's, we're going to shoot him. Any reason why we shouldn't? And Frodo tells them to stay their hand. And again, I love what that says about Frodo's character. Feel however you want to feel about Smeagol. What that says about Frodo's character is hugely endearing.
Yeah, I feel like once again we get Sam wishing that he would have spoken up and had them shoot Gollum. So that wasn't great. Frodo definitely came out of this sequence looking better than Sam did, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And then I thought it was really funny that Faramir, he was really interested in the tea about Gollum, right? Like he bore the ring once. I'm just seeing him gasping, like he actually bore the ring, and that he's your guide. All these like facts. He's just like, what? This is amazing. Obviously, that maybe I made him more dramatic about it in my head, but the way he kept kind of exclaiming when he found out more information about Gollum.
I don't think you did though, because he's like, I really want to know how he came to carry your burden, but we won't, I'm paraphrasing terribly, but like we don't have time for that now. But he wanted the deets.
He did. He's like, excuse me? Like, the thing that you have is, I mean, we're talking about the same thing, right? How did that? They kept calling him like a black squirrel. He's been called that multiple times. So I guess he also, in the books, is described somewhat differently than he looks in the movies, right? Because in the movies, I'd give him like a flesh color or like a light gray. But every time they talk about him in the books, it's like a black squirrel. So I'm just wondering, is he like dark? Like a really shadow colored creature? I don't know. It's interesting. Or is it just because it's at night? You know what I mean? I don't know. I'm not sure. I like how they made him look in the movies though. So the gigantic eyes from being in the cave for so long and all that stuff. It works for me.
Yeah, I mean, but if you apply that logic, if he were stuck in the caves for many, many years, his skin would be more washed out looking, lighter, closer to translucent even, could be a case made for, because no light exposure.
Exactly. So I think...
Unless he's just straight up dirty.
Yeah, that's a good... In my mind, almost every time somebody spots him from a distance that isn't familiar with him, it's at night. And so that's what I'm thinking, is he just like, he's always in the shadows.
Just a dark figure.
Yeah, he's just a dark figure. And so they assume he's like, you know, a black squirrel, which they mention, I think, you know, they have those things in Mirkwood or whatever, which we saw in The Hobbit. So I thought that was kind of fun.
Yeah.
Okay, so Faramir poses the option to Frodo. Gollum must be captured or slain, and Frodo offers to go down to Gollum to convince him to return with him, and notes that Faramir's men can slay him if he fails. I found that to be a really noble sentiment, to protect Gollum of all things, and I assume you agree based on what you just said.
I did. So this whole section, and also, you know, before he even goes down to try and bring Smeagol back up voluntarily, he talks about how Gandalf wouldn't have wanted you to slay him either for this and other reasons. So I, you know, that stuck out. I thought that it was, I thought that, you know, it was about, you know, my word is my bond kind of thing. That's how that came across to me. The whole, you can strike me down if I don't come back with him, is how I took that. But I could almost feel Frodo second guessing himself as he approaches him, because ultimately he has to kind of betray Gollum in the conversation to uphold his word to Faramir. And so, as treacherous a creature as Gollum is, Frodo never wanted to cross that line with him. And that was the only way that he was going to be able to get him back up to Faramir and the other men. Yeah,
to his credit, I was like paying attention to this, right? Because I remember him, I want to say it felt more like a lie in the movies, and you will be able to confirm this because you get to go watch The Two Towers this weekend, or obviously whenever you're listening, she will have already watched The Two Towers, because it'll be shortly before this episode comes out. But you can confirm later that it does seem in the movies like he's like truly lying to him, but in the books, he just, I think, neglects to mention that along with Sam, that's up further on the path, there are also these men that Gollum doesn't know, and that will be very suspicious of him. So my question is, do you think the way he did this, like, trust me, Smeagol, let's go get Sam, Smeagol, and not mentioning the men, did he play that right?
I think so. I think he tried to do it with, he tried to minimize damage, right? He tried to tell as little of a lie as possible. So they were lies of omission, without a doubt.
Right.
And he did tell him, you know, how did he word it? That we will carry on, but we cannot right now. And he continues to urge him to trust him further.
Right.
So I think that he was doing everything he could to keep his word to Faramir, and to, you know, not break his word to Gollum either, which I personally believe nobody else would care if they lied to Gollum or if they were treacherous of his faith. So again, just sterling character on the part of Frodo. I think that he cared when nobody else would have. I feel like lots of people treat Gollum as though he is not a sentient creature or a creature that you would have to keep your word to. So I think that he did. I think that it was very tight. It kind of like, you're going to love this, kind of like the riddles game. You know, you walk a very razor thin line, but no confidences were broken, in my opinion.
No, they were not. Yeah.
So that's my honest take.
So he played it as well as he could.
As close to the vest as he could, with as little damage as possible.
He walked the tightrope. Yeah, I tend to agree. Part of me thinks like, man, I wish he could have been like, now just so you know, there are other people here, but if you run away, they're gonna shoot you. So don't run away, right? That would be the one.
I don't think that would have worked.
I know, you think he would probably run away.
I think he would have run, or he would have fought. Like it just, I could see that going so many ways that don't end in Smeagol doing what they want of him. I think that he did what he needed to do to get Smeagol to comply. For Smeagol's own good, and tried to minimize how much lying he had to do in the process.
That's fair. So, question about Smeagol. Although I feel like I've noticed that you call him Smeagol more and I call him Gollum more, which I think is funny. Like we're giving Frodo and Sam in this, in our opinion of Smeagol / Gollum.
I see nothing wrong with this.
Yeah, true. Did you notice the green light in Gollum's eyes when he realized he'd been made?
Yes. So green lights flickering in his bulging eyes, and I wrote, "Dang it, Kritter." So I'll show you. You can go in our shared drive and look. That's not even a lie. That's 100% factual. So now all I notice is what color his eyes are. And I 100% think that when the bad Gollum is driving, his eyes are green and treacherous and scary. I can't not think it now.
I am glad, well, kind of glad that I alerted you to it. I do wonder if you would have eventually put 2 and 2 together there.
I'd like to think I would have, but sometimes, big things go whooshing right by me and I don't notice. So I can't pretend otherwise. Fair. Yeah.
I mean, it could easily just be like, he's got weird eyes. That could have been the explanation. He is Gollum.
I did notice that they talk about them being big and luminous, but sometimes they specifically talk about them flashing green. I certainly noticed that the description changes. I just don't know that if I had taken enough attention to realize that when his eyes change green, typically he is not so happy one way or the other.
Angry in some way or sneaky.
And his green eyes led right into my second most quoted Lord of the Rings quote, which is wicked, tricksy, false.
False. I love the way Andy Serkis does it. False.
Yeah. That was all in caps in my outline. I'm like, no, this is a thing me and my kids say a lot.
That's awesome. So Faramir informs Gollum once, obviously, the men appear to him that the only reason he wasn't killed was because of Frodo's protection. So you would think maybe that would help. And after Gollum swears on the Precious to never come back or lead anyone to the hideout, Faramir puts Gollum into Frodo's care and then grants Frodo leave to freely roam in Gondor, except back to the hideout. Were you surprised by Faramir's judgment here?
I was a little, and the way that he let him have free reign, but with a doom, like an agreement of a doom over their head, that he would need to go and present himself to the Lord and Steward before he could return to that place, which sounded a lot like Rohan's policy, presenting to the Lord of the land.
Right.
So, it definitely leaves me feeling like Faramir might be taking, I don't want to say taking advantage, but exercising a little leniency here.
Yeah, definitely. That's the vibe I got for sure.
So,
yeah. So I feel like in my mind right now, Faramir can do no wrong. So like perfect judgment. I love it. It's interesting that I don't know if it was here or a little later on, but he basically says if Gollum is ever found without Frodo, period, in Gondor. Or did he say even outside of Gondor by the men of Gondor, you are dead. Death sentence. Just like, that's pretty brutal. But Gollum did violate their most sacred laws by being in the pool.
So it wasn't the fish, it was the pool. And yeah.
Right. So I get it. I mean, it's better than a death sentence immediately, that he carries out right away.
Yeah.
So
I did want to point out, just for a little bit of that Smeagol support, Faramir puts him to the question and asks him what the destination is. And to his credit, Smeagol does not give it up. Frodo winds up having to answer Faramir. So as I'm reading that, I realize how ridiculous it is, but I'm like, he ain't no rat.
He's not a snitch.
He's not a snitch. He's got a lot of flaws, but he's not a snitch.
He's no snitch. That's really
it's funny how things like that stand out to me. Yeah. Any redeemable quality.
Yeah.
Later in the chapter, even Frodo says he's not altogether wicked.
Yeah.
Again, the narrative appeals to me, right? Because I don't believe that any person is wholly bad or wholly good.
Sure.
And so, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think he's wholly bad either. I just think our sliding scales are in different places.
Sure.
I have no love for Gollum at all. But obviously I've been influenced by a lot of factors, so whatever. Okay, so when he finds out that Gollum intends to take Frodo to Cirith Ungol, a place of sleepless malice full of lidless eyes, he advises strongly against it, this Faramir. We find out that that's where the 9 men of Numenor, gifted the Rings of Power, dwelt after they were devoured and turned into living ghosts. So I can't say I recall the ring wraiths being described this way exactly before. Did you find it interesting?
Not only interesting, but shocking. So I was like, so this tower not only was taken over by the enemy, it's taken over, like, it's the Nazgul honeycomb hideout. Like, this is this is getting serious. And I honestly don't remember seeing anybody mention this tower in the movies, so I can't wait to go to the movies this weekend. But I don't remember any mention of all of the Nazgul bunking together like roomies. I don't remember anything like that from the movies, so I am very interested. But it was also a really chilling description of them as well. Additionally, like, they were already super creepy, so it just amped that up.
Yeah, devoured and returned as like, ooh, okay,
yeah.
Good description. We talked about, didn't we talk about the fact that we said that Lord of the Rings doesn't have zombies or something, and they were like, well, kind of, it kind of does,
yeah, kind of does,
on your perspective.
Yeah.
All right, so then Frodo asks where else he could go, if not Cirith Ungol, and if Faramir wanted him to take the ring to Gondor. And this is where Faramir varies wildly from the movies. He declines immediately, warns Frodo of Gollum, sensing murder in him, and ultimately wishes him well in his journey. And that's the end of the chapter. Any final thoughts about this last exchange or the chapter generally?
Just permanently secures Faramir a gold star. Just, he really did live up to, he walked the walk as well as talking the talk. So that was amazing.
Yeah.
And he's a far more interesting character. Even having a limited scope in the book, he's a far more interesting character than what I got out of him in the movies, which is just, oh, you're the younger brother.
And in Two Towers, at least, minor villain until he gets redeemed. Like, he does not make life easy for Frodo and Sam, and makes several different decisions than he makes in the books. So.
Which, I mean, you could paint that in that light, the way that he waylays them in Ilithian, or whatever this section of Mordor is called. He definitely slows them down, but not without cause, and doesn't, arrest them per se.
Yeah, I mean, here, like, part of the reason he takes them, he even says, he's like, these hills are like crawling with bad guys, so you're not going to get anywhere in the next little bit anyway. So I feel like this, more than anything, was like yet another brief respite, the little refuge, like Rivendell and Lothlorien were before, obviously much briefer, and it really like helped them hit the reset button. Yeah. In my opinion. So he treated them well, start to finish, and I just love to see it.
Yeah. So that's all I had for chapter 6.
Okay. Book 4, chapter 7, Journey to the Crossroads. So, speaking of the end with Faramir, Faramir bids farewell to Frodo and Sam, supplementing their packs with extra provisions and gifting them stout staves made of the fair tree Lebrethon. They were a particularly fitting gift as virtue had been set upon them of finding and returning. So, as far as gifts go, not bad. Or do you disagree?
No, I thought they were awesome.
Yeah, they're about to do some real hiking, real climbing. So the little, it's like he took him to REI and picked him out the best hiking
having
pole.
a good walking stick is always good.
Yeah. So Frodo recognizes their value and the value of his time with Faramir, noting that Elrond was right and that he'd meet friendship on his journey, secret and unlooked for. I kind of love that, prophecy fulfilled.
Mm-hmm.
It was great. So, as they're leaving, Faramir orders Gollum blindfolded for the path away from the hideout, and Frodo asks that they all three be blindfolded to make it easier or more digestible for Gollum. Would you have done the same?
No.
No! Okay,
No.
Wow, I was not expecting that.
So I am a control freak, so having to be blindfolded or a hood over my face, no. I'm very invested in your rehabilitation, Smeagol, but not that invested.
I love that. I was certain you would say that you would make the same choice because it was a noble one.
For making accommodations. You know what I mean? Doing things to make it feel more equitable to help people hopefully feel a little less called out. I usually am all for that, but not when it pushes certain boundaries for me. I do have some boundaries.
Okay. All right. Yeah, it was definitely a callback to whenever they were being led into Lothlorien, and Frodo even mentions the fact that Gimli majorly protested, and but yeah, he was like, yeah, I'm fine with that. So I think that was very. It showed his leadership, I think, for sure. He clearly had learned from, I guess,
and
Aragorn.
A very sweet gesture, and we have no idea if Smeagol appreciated it or not, even, but it was still a very sweet gesture.
For sure. So the party branches off on their own. And at one point on a break, Sam is the first to sleep, and we get a glimpse of his dream. He's at Bag End, so tired, in the garden with a heavy pack weighing him down, and the garden is in shambles. Weeds everywhere. He's looking for something and ultimately realizes it's his pipe. He wakes up and soon realizes he knows where his pipe is, but also that he can't use it because he doesn't have pipeweed, and he's hundreds of miles from Bag End. We've gotten these little dream sequences on occasion in the books. Did this one speak to you at all?
As somebody who stress dreams, yes, it did. It resonated with me. To wake up from a dream and just have it, come rushing back to you. Oh, but actually, I'm here in situation X, and it is so much worse. So much worse. I actually had a stress dream last night. Fun fact, this so unrelated to anything, but yeah, I had a dream the world was ending. There was something coming, like some firestorm or something, and I, for some reason, was trying to develop a way to prevent the world from ending rather than living up my last day on Earth or whatever. Sure. And I never figured anything out, but then some variable changed and the world didn't end. And then I woke up. It was obviously stress dreams usually end with the stress continuing, but it was I feel like it was such a long dream that it ended up okay. And I don't know. It was bizarre. So yeah, I too will occasionally have stress dreams. And let me tell you, I was like, do we have any bunkers we can hide in? All my alternatives were getting shot down by everyone, which is frustrating. So I can see how Sam would be like, my God, my garden, it's in shambles and I can't find, what am I even looking for? I don't know. So poor guy. It was definitely indicative of the stress that he's under. Yeah. More than anything else. And I find that I've had stress dreams where you wake up and it's just a genuine relief. You're like, oh, God, it was just a dream. Okay, cool. Yeah. Or you wake up and you're just still so mad. You took the mad with you. I've had definitely both. And for him to just wake up and be like, well, that's not real, but the reality really sucks by
It's
comparison.
worse. It's worse somehow.
Makes me feel for our buddy Sam.
I know, poor guy. I especially hate it whenever I'm in the middle of a stress stream and I wake up and I'm like, oh my gosh, thank God. And then I fall back asleep and it keeps going. Yeah. And I forget. It's a dream. It's the worst.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways. So yeah, I thought this was one. It also kind of reminds me that I think I've talked about this before, but there's this game called Valheim where you're like explorers in like sort of like in a Norse mythology setting, because you know, if it's storming outside you can see Thor flying above you and stuff, but it's you can build, you can craft, you can explore, and whenever you go to sleep at night, because like you can pass the nighttime by going to sleep, it'll like pop a dream up, you know, and sometimes they're so random and you can read them, and it kind of reminds me of this one. It's like you're looking for something but you don't know what you're looking for, and then you find it, you know. It's like there's these little like calm dream passages, and that's what this one kind of reminded me of. Anyways, nice. So many tangents. But we're back. The party then gets to the crossroads. And this was one time I did consult the map in the book just to kind of orient myself, because I'm, you know, it's like, wait, okay, so Mordor's east, Osgiliath is south, what's north? Not sure. What's west? Not sure. You know, anyway, so I had to look it up. Did you do the same?
No, but I'm doing it now.
Right, because I'm like, okay, this is a 4-way stop here. Where are all the directions headed? I
will say I did look at because it did talk about how Osgiliath was to the west, I think, and
was it? Because I could have sworn when I looked at it, it was to the south. I have to look again. This is clearly a problem.
You shouldn't believe me.
Oh, you know what? It is to the sorry. The word is like written over the path to the south, but the dot is on the path to the west. So yeah, your girl needs to work on map reading. But you're right. Osgiliath is to the west.
I do believe in a previous episode I shared that I had a very poor map skills grade in 3rd grade that I still haven't gotten over. So
yeah, and the north path it leads to Henneth Anun, so that's
where they just were.
And then the south path is just South Ithilien. There's nothing really of note down there, basically. So,
yeah.
Now we know. We know.
With all of the talk about the crossroads, definitely as this chapter progresses, it gets just clearer and clearer that Gollum is truly driving them.
Yeah. It's like, gotta get to the crossroads. Gotta keep going. Like,
yeah, it was quite intense. I was like, oh, yeah, that's not light at all. It's very heavy-handed and blatantly obvious that he is driving them forward.
Yeah.
And that and Frodo's clearly struggling.
Definitely. Yes. So at the crossroads, in a brief break from the covering darkness, because it seems in this land it's very dark a lot of the time, stormy, Frodo noticed a broken statue of a king. It was headless, but he caught sight of the head nearby in the sunbeams. And despite being otherwise defaced, a plant of small white flowers created a crown upon its head. And Frodo noted, they cannot conquer forever, before the sun was once again lost. And that is it for the chapter. Any final thoughts about that or anything else in the chapter?
I had a couple. So there was a talk of, while they were going, I think they were still on their way to the crossroads, about them passing under a spiny thicket. Like the thicket is so tall that the hobbits could fit under it. I thought that was very descriptive. And then it talks about there's a red glare that keeps getting mentioned, which at this point, again, based on my movie knowledge at least, I'm assuming that this is context clues throughout the chapter of the eye. So whenever they mention the red gleam, I'm like, this is either a reflection of or an emanation of the eye. And it must be relatively facing in that direction to be casting light.
The gaze of Sauron.
Yes.
Okay. I like it. I like that interpretation.
And then the last Yes, the last thing that I had is that Frodo and Sam were having dialogue about Gollum having taken off again, and Frodo defending him yet again. So Sam's mentioning how he's essentially useless. So he's useless and he's done no good, nothing but serve his own purposes. And Frodo defends him, saying, "You forget the marshes, and I hope nothing has happened to him."
Yeah.
And again, I know I have bias, but at the same time, whenever he does this, I feel like there have been a couple of instances, and there's another one next chapter where Sam gets very absolute and black and white, and Frodo goes, "Oh, that's not exactly how that went down." And so as opposed to it just being indulgence maybe of Smeagol, he's going, "No, you missed something. You forgot something. Like, stay even-handed when you're talking about these things." And so that stuck out to me.
You're clearly not subjective. Or sorry, you're clearly not objective. You're looking at this very subjectively with not the opposite of rose-colored glasses. So you got to think about the facts. Yeah, I appreciate Frodo for that very even-handed, logical approach. All right, so is that it for chapter 7?
That's it for 7.
Okay. Last chapter of this reading, book 4, chapter 8, The Stairs of Kirit-Ungol. So, where the tower of Minas Ithil, the moon tower, glowed with the imprisoned light of the moon, the tower of Minas Morgul was paler indeed than the moon, ailing in some slow eclipse, the light of it wavering and blowing like a noisome exhalation of decay, a corpse light, a light that illuminated nothing. There were rotten meadows, or meads as they called them, and twisted statues. So this whole vibe, pretty foreboding, no?
Yeah, it sounds like they've absolutely ruined it and turned it into a nightmarescape.
Yeah, like I'm picturing, it's giving whenever the mystery machine rolls up to a mansion, and there's
Eldritch fog.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Like, you're playing Arkham Horror, and the description of like one of the places you're approaching, it's got a green hue about it and whatever else. Like, yeah. Ugh. It definitely painted a picture.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Frodo is immediately heavily affected by this tower and proceeds zombie zombie-like toward the bridge to the tower until Sam and Gollum stop him. Then as they're retreating, he insists the ring is weighing too heavily on him and he needs a rest. So for me, this was stressful and frustrating. Like, Frodo, what are you doing? Like, get out of there. How did you take it?
I thought that it's crazy how sometimes the ring really weighs on him a lot. And so I was left to infer that the ring was weighing on him and acting on him because of the presence and the closeness to the Nazgul, the ring wraiths.
Yeah.
And that the ring was actively trying to get him to go to the city to get caught. Like, there's no two ways about it. Even the narrator confirms it. The ring is actively trying to make him go to the city. That's mostly terrifying.
Yeah, it's like imparting it has a will, right? That's
and it's imposing its will on him.
Right, which is horrifying to say the least.
And then I had just made a note, "Not that way," which is a quote, and it's like when both Sam and Gollum agree, it's serious. They're like, no.
Yeah, Sam's
not
like,
that way.
I agree with him.
I actually agree with him this time. This is a bad idea.
Yeah, that something is very important at that point. So some crazy stuff goes down at the tower. Blue flames, lightning, and an army issues forth with the Lord of the Nine Riders, who stabbed Frodo atop Weathertop at their head. He seems to be looking for something, and Frodo has a real internal battle about busting out the ring. But he wins it by grasping the phial of Galadriel for strength. How did you feel about the sequence and the callback to the phial of Galadriel? I think, was this the first mention of it since it was gifted to them.
Yes. So even better than the rope, right? Like, oh,
Yeah.
even I forgot that this was in their bag of tricks. And the fact that it helped break the sway of whatever was influencing him was incredible. And again, for all I know, was true and was there subtextually in the movies, but was so much better on the page.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think the file is a bigger part of the books, I think, than it was in the movies.
The file was very cool to read through this chapter, especially how it influenced how this all went down and how it helped Frodo break free of the ring's influence.
Yeah, and the way Galadriel described it whenever she gave it to them, right? May it be a light in dark places. And so often, so far in this region of the world, it's been described as like it's just always night here. It's
so dark.
It's so dark here. The weight of the ring on Frodo is this dark influence, right? The Black Riders up ahead. All of this stuff is just like so horrifying and imposing and evil and, you know, metaphorically dark in some ways, but physically as well. And the fact that it could be a light for him and help him overcome it, I thought was really great. And I don't know that that's what he did in the movie. I don't know if the file was really part of that, which is funny because I've seen the movies so many times. I don't remember him clutching the file though.
We'll know more next week. Yeah, we'll know more next week.
All right, so after the army passed and Sam roused Frodo, they began to ascend the stairs. Lots and lots of stairs. I got secondhand tired reading this. How about you?
Yeah, and I have vertigo issues, so every time they would talk about them running their hands and the wall would just stop, I'm like, nope. That's a nope.
Well, yeah, and they describe the stairs as like more or less a ladder. So I'm over here just like, oh God, imagine, you know, because like there's nothing behind them, right? They're just climbing. And
I've literally had seats high enough in a concert venue that I wouldn't stand up. Like I just sat. So the idea of doing that, you know, free range over a straight drop is I was like, that's very descriptive. It was very effective for me. Good job.
Yeah.
Tolkien.
Oof. Yeah, not a fun thing to consider. So let's see. Sam and Frodo take a break at the top of the stair before proceeding onward and have an absolutely lovely conversation. Like, let me tell you, I absolutely adore this conversation. And I've convinced Jessica to do a dramatic reading with me of this conversation because it's like one of the highlights. It's one of the most perfect examples of literary umami for me in the series that I remember. So please bear with us because I just love it so much and I want to do it now. So Jessica?
And for the record, I agreed to it because I agree that it was an incredible scene to read. So I was willing to try and do this dramatic reading.
Okay. Great.
I don't like anything here at all, said Frodo. Step or stone, breath or bone, earth, air, and water all seem accursed, but so our path is laid.
Yes, that's so, said Sam, and we shouldn't be here at all if we'd known more about it before we started. But I suppose it's often that way. The brave things in the old tales and songs, Mr. Frodo, adventures, as I used to call them. I used to think that they were things the wonderful folk of the stories went out and looked for because they wanted them, because they were exciting and life was a bit dull. A kind of a sport, as you might say. But that's not the way of it with the tales that really mattered, or the ones that stay in the mind. Folk seem to have been just landed in them, usually. Their paths were laid that way, as you put it. But I expect they had lots of chances, like us, of turning back. Only they didn't. And if they had, we shouldn't know, because they'd have been forgotten. We hear about those as just went on, and not all to a good end, mind you. At least, not to what folk inside a story and not outside it call a good end. You know, coming home and finding things all right, though not quite the same. like old Mr. Bilbo. But those aren't always the best tales to hear, though they may be the best tales to get landed in. I wonder what sort of a tale we've fallen into.
I wonder, said Frodo, but I don't know. And that's the way of a real tale. Take any one that you're fond of. You may know or guess what kind of a tale it is, happy ending or sad ending, but the people in it don't know, and you don't want them to.
No, sir, of course not. Baron now, he never thought he was going to get that Silmaril from the Iron Crown and Thangordrim, and yet he did. And that was a worse place and a blacker danger than ours. But that's a long tale, of course, and he goes past the happiness and into grief and beyond it. And the Silmaril went on and came to Yarendale. And why, sir, I never thought of that before. You've got some of the light of it in that star glass, and that lady gave you. Why, to think of it, we're in the same tale still. It's going on. Don't the great tales never end?
No, they never end as tales, but the people in them come and go when their parts ended. Our part will end later, or sooner.
And then we can have some rest and some sleep, said Sam. He laughed grimly. And I mean just that, Mr. Frodo. I mean plain, ordinary rest and sleep. And waking up to a morning's work in the garden. I'm afraid that's all I'm hoping for all the time. All the big, important plans are not for my sort. Still, I wonder if we shall ever be put into songs or tales. We're in one, of course, but I mean, put into words, told by the fireside, or read out of a great big book with red and black letters, years and years afterwards. And people will say, let's hear about Frodo and the Ring. And they'll say, yes, that's one of my favorite stories. Frodo was very brave, wasn't he, Dad? Yes, my boy, the famousest of the hobbits. And that's saying a lot.
It's saying a lot too much, said Frodo, and he laughed, a long, clear laugh from his heart. Such a sound had not been heard in those places since Sauron came to Middle-earth. To Sam, suddenly, it seemed as if all the stones were listening and the tall rocks leaning over them. But Frodo did not heed them. He laughed again. Why, Sam, he said, to hear you somehow makes me as merry as if the story was already written. But you've left out one of the chief characters, Samwise the Stout-Hearted. I want to hear more about Sam, Dad. Why didn't they put in more of his talk, Dad? That's what I like. It makes me laugh. And Frodo wouldn't have gotten far without Sam, would he, Dad?
Now, Mr. Frodo, said Sam, you shouldn't make fun. I was serious.
So was I, said Frodo, and so I am.
I love that part so much.
I'm just gonna say we did a really good job. Neither of us is crying.
Not yet.
Take the win.
I'm gonna take the win. I don't know. My heart just explodes whenever I read that passage every time.
Yeah.
I actually so much I love the part also. It's presented differently, but in the Two Towers, Sam has a speech that's very, very similar. And if you're watching on YouTube, you can see, but I have this illustrated version of the speech that he gives in the Two Tower that I got on Etsy, and it's the cutest thing ever. Yeah, it's got the different towers. It's got Sting. It's so cute because I love it so much. But it's interesting that it's definitely abbreviated in the movies, but it's still incredibly inspirational. And this just, I don't know, it demonstrates their love for each other. It's just this beautiful moment in such a dark place. And it's just one of my favorites, honestly. One of my favorite things from the Lord of the Rings books so far that we've encountered.
Yeah. It was probably one of the most tender moments in my read.
Yeah.
It's right up there.
I know. I love it. I want to hear more about Sam. It kills me every time.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, we can move on. Let us know in the comments or on the Discord if you appreciated it as much as we did, because dang, I love it. So whenever they're hanging out there, Sam reiterates his distrust of Gollum and predicts that if they get to the border into Mordor, kind of rhymed, Gollum won't just let them go through without making some kind of trouble.
Yeah.
Now, I know we give Sam grief about his nastiness toward Gollum, but what he's saying rings a bit true, especially given Gollum's caginess about whether the path is guarded and that green light that keeps showing up in his eyes. So are you sympathizing with Sam anymore as we're approaching? This is all coming to a head, essentially.
I mean, I am, but I think that Frodo gets it. So what I liked about this exchange is that Frodo says, if he's false, he's false. Like, Frodo has never said, you're off base, that's not true, blah, 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 blah. He's just said, like, this is the landscape. This is what we need to do.
Yeah.
He's the means to an end. And I had actually highlighted this whole passage because I thought that it was interesting to hear Frodo's take on Gollum's perspective. Because for all that he defends him and looks out for him and is gentler with him than others, we don't really hear a lot of insight into what Frodo actually thinks is going on behind the scenes for Gollum. So he's like, regarding Gollum, he says, very likely he can't guess himself. And I don't think he's got just one plain scheme in his muddled head. I think he really is in part trying to save the precious from the enemy as long as he can, for that would be the last disaster for himself too, if the enemy got it. And in the other part, perhaps he's just biding his time and waiting on chance, which has been my perspective this whole I think that he is very clever and that he's just waiting to see what kind of opportunity shakes loose. But to Frodo's point, nobody, Frodo and Gollum, neither of them want the ring in the enemy's hand.
Yeah. So the enemy of my enemy is my friend, kind of.
It's real things.
Yeah. Okay, so regardless of how nasty Sam thinks Gollum is, we get another side of him the next time we see him. So when he returns, Frodo and Sam have both fallen asleep, Frodo's head cradled in Sam's lap in a very tender sort of a pose. Gollum looks at them, and the gleam fades from his eyes, leaving them old and gray. He appears to be engaging in some interior debate, looking up towards the past. Then he reaches out and touches Frodo's knee, and for a fleeting moment, could one of the sleepers have seen him, they would have thought that they beheld an old, weary hobbit, shrunken by the years that had carried him far beyond his time, beyond friends and kin, and the fields and streams of youth. An old, starved, pitiable thing. And then Sam wakes up and accuses him of sneaking. This fleeting moment passes, and the green light in Gollum's eyes returns.
Yeah.
So do you think Smeagol almost took over there?
I do. Honestly. Yeah. I do. I think that we don't get a lot of times where Frodo is doing a charitable thing, and we don't a lot of times get Gollum's perspective on that, but I wouldn't assume that means that Gollum isn't noticing what's happening. And even in his dialogue, he talks about nice master, although sometimes it is very sarcastic. But he does talk about nice master versus the rude little hobbit, meaning Sam. So he does differentiate between the different types of treatment that he's getting. And I do believe that this was a very close moment where Smeagol almost broke through. And unfortunately, Sam's negativity, Sam's snap judgment based on all that has happened pushes him firmly back into Stinker Land, into Gollum Land.
Yeah. I don't know if this is true, but the internet has told me that this was a particularly tough passage for Tolkien to write. Like, it was kind of an emotional thing for him, just because it was Smeagol on the brink, right? That's kind of what it felt like. He was at a crossroads, and whether it was what Sam said or inevitable, it did feel very much so like Sam kind of ruined it, which is so sad.
But at the same time, he has every reason to suspect Gollum and has every reason to want to protect Frodo from him.
Yeah. Facts. True. It's a tough situation. So as they're headed up on the singular path straight up the mountain, Frodo tries to release Gollum from service, noting that with one way up and in, their bargain was pretty much complete. But Gollum declines and insists on continuing on. And that's the end of the chapter.
Mm-hmm.
Any final thoughts before we pick an MVP?
There were a couple. I had pointed out that if he's false. But then there was also a moment where when they were talking about the fairy tales a little further on from where we read, why even Gollum might be good in a tale. And so, again, being a Gollum stan, I was like, that's very sweet.
Yeah.
And just the idea of how Sam said, I'd keep watch over you if you lay near with my arm around you, just incredibly sweet. And the very end was Sam saying, yes, I called him a sneak. Yes, I said it. I said I was sorry, but pretty soon I'm not going to be sorry anymore. So
yeah.
Sam's kind of being a little hard, but in this moment, like, he owns it. He said it. He did the thing. He tried to apologize for it. It just wasn't enough.
Yeah. Okay. Was that it?
So that's it.
Okay. Well, we've got a tradition where we pick an MVP from the chapters we've read for each episode. Cue the music. Jessica, who would you name as your MVP this episode?
I'm going to throw back to Faramir.
Okay.
He ended strong. He didn't disappoint me. He ended in this section strong.
Mm-hmm.
He's left the scene. I have no reason to know whether or not he'll come back or when. And he really was a benefactor to them while he was with them. He tried to help them with information. He tried to keep them safe. He, was an ambassador, for Gondor to them. So I think I'm going to give it up for Faramir, really looking out for them. And to your point, giving them that last little respite of safety, a little bastion, a little moment, a little breath. I think that's important, given the stair climb that happened afterwards.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, good choice. So I'm going to tell you who I considered first, and then I'll tell you who I'm picking. So I legitimately considered Galadriel because the file is really what clutched up whenever that the King of the Ring Wraiths was nearby, kind of sniffing, looking for the ring, because it was almost like he could sense it. And Frodo overcame that urge that the ring was pulling him on by using the file that Galadriel was so wise in giving to him. But I am going to pick Frodo as my MVP this episode, just because he knew, or he had the, wherewithal to use the resources that were given to him in a very, very tough situation. We also talked the whole episode about how even-handed and logical and reasonable he was when it came to Gollum. He played that negotiation with Gollum as well as he could, right? Because he kept him alive, which is the ideal thing in that situation. And even though he did have some missteps where he, tried to go across the bridge into Cirith Ungol, that wasn't his fault. He's under a lot of pressure. So I think, given everything, that he kind of earned it, and it, as part of the speech that we read, he was so sweet for calling Sam out and like making him feel good about himself too. And I just can't give it to Sam because he's just such a negative Nancy, aside from that cute little moment, that it's just not him this time, even though I love him to death. Absolutely adore him, but he's so negative. And he might have been the reason that Smeagol turned Gollum, right? So
yeah, that was heartbreaking to read, honestly, being somebody who is rooting for Gollum.
Yeah.
Even though I realize what, a losing ticket that is.
Yeah.
I was like, God, it really could have been so different.
It could have, but it's not. So yeah,
Right.
it's Frodo for me, Faramir for you. Both strong choices. As always, let us know in the comments or on Discord or on social media who your MVP is for this episode, if it varies from us or if it's the same. Never forget that Galadriel's an option if you want to go with my original line of thinking. And yeah, we love hearing from you all. And yeah, if you have your take, let us know what it is. Okay. So for next week, that's it. Read for next week, book 4, chapters 9 through 10. Finish the book. Thank you so much for tuning into episode 7 of season 3 of But Are There Dragons, brought to you by your hosts, Jessica Sadai and Kritter XD. Don't forget to follow us at But Are There Dragons on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok, and But Dragons Pod, just one T, on X. You can also find your hosts on social media as Kritter XD and Shelf Indulgence. That is it for today. We are workshopping new catchphrases for season 3, so let us know on social media how you feel about this one. Go with the goodwill of all good men and women. Bye!
Bye!